now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Hi, folks. You're watching The Sam Lesante Show. The question is, folks, do we have a crisis at the border? Lou Barletta recently had a press conference, and one of the things he said is this a problem that affects us all, and it's a crisis that could be coming to a town near you. What does that mean? My guest today is Congressman Lou Barletta from the 11th Congressional District. Congressman, it looks like you have stated here that there's a crisis at the border, okay? Take our viewers back as to how this thing evolved.
Well, first of all, Sam, we have in the past the most unaccompanied children that have come illegally to the United States. Prior to 2012 was under 10,000 children, maybe 5,000 to 9,000 children was the most. Back in 2012, the president issued his own policy, which is called DACA. It's Deferred Action for Children. And basically what the policy is that if you are here in the country illegally and you claim that you have been brought here under the age of 16 and you've been here 7 years, you can stay. The problem with that is that the information that you would give the law enforcement that would take that information cannot investigate whether or not it's true. So therefore, it's a blanket amnesty for anyone who claims that they've been here since they were 10 years old. Since that time, the number of unaccompanied children has jumped from under 10,000 to over 10,000 in 2013 to now over 65,000 children and young adults, they're not all small children, have now entered the United States, and the estimate is that it will go over 100,000. Now, I attended a hearing with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson, who claims that, according to the president, the reason this is happening is not his policy, but rather the violence in countries in El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, that the parents there are just sending their children with the drug cartel, who are the traffickers, the human traffickers that are bringing these young adults 1,000 miles across Mexico, which is another issue, to the United States. They're paying $7,500 per child to the human traffickers, to the drug cartels, to do this. Now, I asked to see where the proof is that this sudden violence in 3 countries is documented, that all of a sudden 65,000 kids got the same idea, or parents got the same idea at the same time to just rush their children to the border. In reality, and I don't doubt that some of that is true, Sam. I don't doubt that there are not some parents who felt that it was better for their children to be here in the United States than in those countries. But we also know that it is true that that many of the children that have come have been sent for by people who are in the country illegally right here in the United States. And they're paying the drug cartel $7,500 to now bring their children here. I have charged that the United States has now become complicit in working with the drug cartels. And I say that because they're making millions and millions and billions of dollars now on transporting these children. Many of these children are being sexually abused along the way. When they get them here, the United States government finishes the transaction. They complete the deal by now delivering these children to the relatives who have sent for them. I don't see how that stops the problem. To me, we're going to continue to see this problem as long as we continue to reward people for breaking America's laws.
At a hearing, you had questioned the secretary, as he said he wasn't aware of it. So what was this document you have here?
Well, the Secretary of Homeland Security said that the president and the administration, the Obama administration, is doing everything they can to stop it. In fact, he told us that the president just within the past week or so. Went down to Mexico to meet with the Mexican president. Vice President Joe Biden has just recently gone down to Central America to talk to the governments of those countries to stop this, and that they are doing everything they can to stop this from happening. And what he couldn't answer is when I produced this document from the Department of Homeland Security that is dated January 29th, and it is a request for a proposal, a request for information, looking for chaperones for approximately 65,000 unaccompanied children. This was in January. The administration knew this was going to happen. They put out proposals looking for chaperones to help. And now 6 months later, when the 65,000 actually came, the president's acting surprised, doesn't know how this happened. And here we are, where these children are literally, in many cases, caged now. We don't know anything about them. We're now having problems with the contagious infectious diseases, such as tuberculosis. One has swine flu, measles, scabies, lice. The conditions there are deplorable, and I'll see it in the next day or so. Why aren't we prepared? We knew this was going to happen. Why didn't the president do something to stop this back in January? Why wasn't the public made notified that this was going to happen if they knew this was going to happen? There's no explanation for this, Sam. There's no explanation why we did not have medical people and shelters in place at the Texas border so that when these children came, they would be able to be taken care of. Why countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are allowed and have not been stopped, and I would simply suspend any foreign aid to those countries until they stop putting these children in danger. And I want to know, and I would do the same with Mexico, I want to know how a United States military man can make a wrong turn into Mexico because of their strict immigration laws, is sitting in prison for 6 months, but yet somehow 65,000 children can illegally enter Mexico and travel 1,000 miles through it to the United States border? Why isn't the Mexican government stopping this as well? They're putting these children in harm's way, and this has now become America's problem. And the problem is going to leave the border. As DHS is now looking at transporting these children, just because there are so many, to places around the United States. And it came to my attention that Hazleton was one of them. And that's was the reason I had the press conference.
What are the ages? Okay, because when they're saying 65,000 children, excuse me, we're thinking children, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, children. What are the general ages of these
Some
children?
of them are that small. We're right now, Border Patrol, instead of watching our border, are now changing diapers, heating formula, overseeing daycare centers. In the meantime, the drug cartel, terrorists, gang members are simply entering the United States because our Border Patrol is babysitting. But the ages range from small children up to the ages of 17. Another major problem is we don't know anything about any information about any of these young adults. Those anywhere who could be associated with gangs, especially from Central America, that are 14, 15, 16, 17. We know for a fact that children are join gangs, some at 9, 10, 11 years old. So we don't have any background on these individuals at all. We don't know if they're gang members. We don't know if they're associated with gangs. We don't know if they're associated with the drug cartels. And now we're going to send them to our communities. We don't know if they have infectious disease, contagious disease. Who's going to pay for this? Especially here in Hazleton, where our services, our charitable services, are already stretched beyond its limits. I talked to Dr. Antonelli. Our schools are stretched beyond its limits. Our healthcare system, our police department, who is going to pay for this?
See, sometimes when there's miscommunications and people look at certain things, just like the miscommunication of when you had your news conference, people thought that you actually want to bring these people here, where it's just completely the opposite. How that came about, I have no idea, because I even said to you, when I spoke to the phone. When you told me, I was like shocked. What are you kidding me? Did they see the news conference? I mean, but here again, the liberals, the bleeding hearts, which, they're saying you're a pro-life person. And so, Mr. Barletta, you're telling people that you're so pro-life that, you should have these babies. Now you don't even want to take care of these babies.
Well, I am pro-life, and I do have compassion for the children. And, but I don't think we should step over our own children many are living in poverty, many who are hungry, many who are homeless, how many are in foster homes hoping for a family to take care of them. How about 1 in 3 homeless is a United States veteran who slept under a bridge last night? We're going to walk over them because others just wanted to come into the United States without authority and now say, here I am, it's your responsibility to take care of me, but we're not going to take care of our own?
Well, Lou, let's cut to the chase a little bit here, okay? And let me just be the devil's advocate. Here again, I like to always present facts. We go back 2 years of the election, okay? There was a lot of commitments made by the president, okay? Anybody who was, on welfare or immigration was, he made a lot of promises. Do you think this basically, okay, when you look at it, is a big political thing where and I'm just asking this question, where you think that, people in the country who he promised immigration to, now they're calling for their relatives to come here and they're paying for their relatives. Is this sort of like a political thing, you think, on the president?
Well, I don't think there's any question that there's political implications to this, and that's why not only the president but anyone in Congress that talks about amnesty, I don't believe is looking out for the best interest of America. Why are we not securing our borders? If they listened to me back in 2006, we wouldn't have this problem today. But instead, they ridiculed me, called me names, and continue to do so when I'm couldn't be any clearer. We are going to have a national catastrophe here because of our open borders. And when somebody can create the chaos that's happening on the border right now, and groups as violent and extreme and radical like this ISIS in Iraq, whose goal is nothing more than to hurt the United States. They're so radical, Sam, Al-Qaeda said they're too extreme. They want to get the United States. Does anybody feel secure and safe? And someone brought a good point. A former ICE agent called me yesterday, and he said, Congressman, I want to ask you, would the people who criticize you for what you're doing now with the 65,000 unknowns that we now have here, would they get on a plane if 6 foreign nationals bypassed security with backpacks on and got on the plane that they were on? Do you think that they would sit on that plane? Probably not. Why then are they comfortable with the fact that we have so many people in the country who have gone around our inspections, gone around our authorities? We have no knowledge of why they are here, truly, and we're okay with this. Why do they think that there's not going to be an incident here in the United States where innocent Americans will be hurt? Sam, I went to a naturalization ceremony in Harrisburg a couple weeks ago, about a month ago. There were 35 individuals from 25 countries. It was the most beautiful ceremony I saw. They stood there with their American flags, talked about how hard and how long it took them to become an American citizen and how proud they are to now call America their home. And I thought, as beautiful as this is, what I know is that this afternoon, somebody's going to cross that border illegally and get the same benefits that people who waited years. There's something wrong with this.
Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Lou Barletta. As you can see, this could be a serious issue. The question is, folks, how much are we going to let the politics destroy the country? And again, without being political, I did not see the kind of coverage I thought should have been covered when Mr. Barletta had his news conference, because this is a crisis, period. Let me just give you an example, folks, and this comes from the superintendent, Dr. Antonelli. He said, the McKinney Vento Act is a mandate that requires educational services for homeless children. Refugees are considered homeless. These children must be enrolled even though they lack documentation for immunizations, proof of birth of age, or proof of residence. Significant costs would be incurred for mass inoculations, additional classroom space, additional teachers, additional support staff such as ESL services, excuse me, and additional transportation. So this gives you an idea just here, but this is the same thing that affects any city, any town in the United States, correct, Congressman?
No, they're going to transport these children all over the country, including they were looking at, and hopefully we'll be able to stop it from coming to Hazleton.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, ssptv.com. My email is sam@ssptv.com. And for those of you who are watching us in Pottsville, you do know that we're on Comcast 190 now, and also in the Wilkes-Barre area, Channel 19, and we're on every night, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. on the Wilkes-Barre system. Now, Comcast system, folks, we're on from 7 to 11, Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night on Comcast 190. Additional shows, folks, such as a special show, we welcome you to Sam Lesante Show. For example, in the Harrisburg area, they're watching us on a specific Comcast cable. My guest today is Congressman Lou Barletta. A serious crisis, folks, that we're facing at our border, 65,000 children. And again, Lou, when you talk children, you're thinking only 3, 2, 4, 5 years old, but there's a lot more involved. So explain to me what, even though the show will be seen after you're back, because I want to play this show as much as I can so people can become aware of what's happening, because this election in November is going to be critical, very critical. What will you be doing when you go on this border trip?
Well, the first thing we're going to do when we arrive will be to get a tour, hopefully, and actually see the camps and the shelters where the young adults and minors are.
Do you really think they're going to show you everything, or are they going to hide it?
I'm going to want to make sure that I see everything. There are going to be the questions I'm going to ask. Did we see everything?
Yeah.
I want to see where.
Because I'm sure the president knows you guys are going down.
Well,
I'm
they
sure,
do. It's a hearing.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they're prepared for you, and so it'll be you know what I'm trying to say. Will you really get the real, true facts that you are going down?
Well, we'll ask to make sure that we've seen all of what's here. So it'll be interesting on whether or not we do. That we'll find out. We're going to talk to the Border Patrol. At least I intend to, and I'm very interested in what kind of medical screening we're doing, how good it is, how accurate is it, what kind of proof do we have, what kind of backgrounds are we doing on the individuals that have come here, and are we doing criminal background checks on the people we're putting these children in their custody of? Do we know if we're turning them over to predators or people who are associated with gangs or drug dealers or drug users? Are we just going to disperse these children to anyone who claims they're a relative? What kind of thorough background? Sam, I have doubts that we're going to do this. I have doubts. They're even questioning what kind of medical testing are really being done, because the crisis is getting so big. Secretary Johnson said it will exceed 100,000 children. They're expecting over another 35,000, 40,000 children to come yet. And as I said, they knew this before it happened. Why? How can that be?
To me, again, to me, it's political. The president made a promise 2 years ago on immigration, and this is just my opinion. I hope I'm dead wrong. Believe me, I do. And it's not that I'm picking on him, but I mean, he seems right now to bypass you guys anyway. Congress, he doesn't, really. He's laughing at Boehner and you guys. But so, all right, let's assume you find some serious problems there. Okay, what are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm sure we'll have more hearings back. We'll take the information back to Washington with us, and depending on what we see and what we learn, we'll have more hearings. And if there are more committees that need to get involved, we will, and until we get to the bottom of what they did about it, why they didn't do anything else, and why now is this just become America's problem? Why are we putting the American people at risk for whether it's infectious diseases? We don't know who's vaccinated, who's not, and what they're going to do about it. What responsibility do the other countries take? I believe we need to bring the National Guard down to do one of two things: either to watch these camps so the Border Patrol can get back on the border before terrorists and other bad people enter the United States, or the National Guard on the border to protect our national sovereignty. Sam, just last week, we had a Mexican military helicopter fire shots at 2 Border Patrol agents over United States territory in Arizona. They've gone back, and the Mexican government said they were sorry. We're not standing up for our national sovereignty anymore.
What about your colleagues in Congress? Are they? Do you have the majority support?
It's hard to say, Sam. I've been very frustrated since I've gone to Congress. I seem to be, the one who's been screaming in the forest where nobody wants to hear me. Many have been talking about a pathway to citizenship and amnesty, and all of a sudden this crisis comes, and it's, I hate to say I told you so, but when you wave that flag of amnesty, people are going to come.
I mentioned before the break, this November is going to be a serious election. And how do you see this election in November for, how the setup's going to be?
Well, for me, the issues are pretty clear. I mean, you have an IRS, the most powerful agency in the United States, losing information, spying on, going after people, targeting people. You have the Veterans Administration, veterans actually dying, some not at war, but at here waiting for treatment. You have a president that changes the immigration law and makes it harder for immigrants and Americans to find work. An economy that hasn't done anything. I don't know how much longer you can blame George Bush. At some point, you got to take responsibility for the fact that this country is not better off today than it was at any time right now. The foreign threats are bragging that they will meet us in New York.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, you go back to when he became the president. He had both House, Senate, and the House, and he had the whole thing, correct?
Correct.
For 2 years. Corbett had the same thing, has the same thing.
Right.
Look what Corbett's done. Got the budget passed, no taxes. He has the House and he has the Senate. He got the job done. And of course, the Democrats are all upset because he's getting the job done. But there's a lot of good Democrats out there, in the state. But here he had 2 years to do that. People don't see that. The press is not on him. Okay, you hear all these things, and I'm embarrassed sometimes because I want the press to be fair and honest. There are a number of broadcast stations that have agendas, and they sneak them in. That's why the broadcast stations are decreasing in viewerships. Why is Fox going through the roof? Because why? Fair and balanced, and they're presenting facts. Wouldn't you think so?
Well, it is. I mean, it is what it is. For the 2 years that the president had total control, he passed the Affordable Care Act without any support from the Republican Party. It was the first time in American history that any major piece of legislation of that magnitude was ever passed by one party alone. He's imposed this law on the American people, and it's clearly broken. It's not working. It's made health care more expensive.
Yeah, well, people have an effect. Before we close, I want to congratulate you on the Legislator of the Year award from the Volunteers Firefighters, and that's honored for work on protecting volunteer fire companies from Obamacare, and I guess that was a very prestigious award.
They're real American heroes who give their lives to protect us every day and night. The volunteer firefighters, our communities would be nothing without them.
Folks, I appreciate you tuning in to the Sam Lesante Show, and I always appreciate the fact that you always find time to come in. We're playing the show probably throughout most of the part of the state of Pennsylvania, just so people become aware of that. My email, sam@ssptv.com, and you can watch this show 24/7 anywhere in the world on our internet system, which is ssptv.com. We'll see you next time.